Simon, question of the moment, and apologies if you weren't expecting it, but what else have you been watching?
Oh my God, you've caught me off guard. All right, let
Every
me
week.
make up something very quickly. Also in cinemas this week, and I'm very late to the party on this one. This one's been bouncing around for quite some time. Is a little horror thriller comedy called Sting. Now, this is the new movie from Kia Roach Turner, the director who made the Wormwood films over the last decade or so. Big splattery zombie films that, if you've seen the Wormwood films or I think there was a Wormwood series attached for a while as well. They're great fun. And he brings that sense of fun to this creature feature, which is certainly a riff on the old arachnophobia sort of Amblin entertainment films, in that a little spider becomes a big spider and terrorizes an apartment building that in which Ryan Corr lives, in which the great young actress Layla Brown lives. She was the young Furiosa in the recent Furiosa film, and a great bunch of Aussie character actors like Nonnie Hazelhurst and Robin Nevin also dwell. It's a beautiful looking film. The production design and the cinematography is terrific. The monster effects work done by the Weta Workshop looks great. The spider, as it grows, is a convincing and very creepy addition to horror movie landscape. And I really enjoyed Sting. It's, once again, probably not one you have to rush out and see at the movies. If you've got your big telly at home, this will be great for a night under the blanket. But in cinemas this week, not a bad week for horror movies, actually, with Longlegs, with Sting. You've still got Maxine in cinemas from last week. I haven't had a chance to see that yet. That's the Mia Goth director Ty West film, which is getting a bit of buzz about it. And also a little Aussie film called Bird Eater, which I've got the link to, but I haven't had a chance to see yet. I might try and catch this week. It's in a few cinemas around the country, and by all accounts, a pretty nasty piece of work. So if you like your scary stuff, there's plenty of it around to have a look at. Which leads me to the question, Dan, what else have you been watching?
Look, this is always a bit of a difficult thing for me, which, because there's often embargoes on TV programs, what I've been watching often I can't really talk about. Also, I've been internet hampered for a lot of the week still, so it's sort of really cut into what I've been able to watch and what I haven't. But two things. So there's a guy, I'm not going to use his surname because he's got a bit of a media profile, but we'll call him Sam. He's a reader of my newsletter, and he started talking about ER because I'd been banging around about ER like in the newsletter for months, if not years, and then it cropped up on ABC
Yes.
iView. So he started watching it based off me just going on about it for so long, and he's been sending me DMs on Twitter for the last, I don't know, we'll say 4 or 5 weeks that he's been watching it. And at some point I was like, you know what, Sam, enough. I'm going to start watching it as well. Like he just broke me down and started doing it. But when I was talking to him
Good.
early in, I was like, the episode that, I think it's episode 17 of season one, is this episode called Love's Labour Lost. And this is an
Yes.
iconic hour of television. And do you know the hour when I just give you the episode title? Do you know what I'm talking
I
about?
think so. I think is this the Tarantino one?
No, no, no. So
Okay.
look, when ER debuted back in 1994, okay, it like immediately just generated a huge amount of heat to it. And like that heat that
Yes.
was there for like the first couple of weeks, like that just built and built as that first season went along. Like we don't have
Yep.
TV like this anymore, which is kind of, I mean, it's a bit sad. But like, there's just been so few shows anywhere near as buzzy as ER was for that very first year, and it just kept on
Sure.
going. And what kept on driving it was that not only was it like just a bit of a hip show to be watching at the time, but it was also just really, really good. And as that first season's going, just when you think that show couldn't really get any hotter, it drops this episode of TV, which is one of the most heartbreaking hours of television that's ever been committed to the
Hmm.
history of television. And it's called Love's Labour Lost. And what the episode is about is Bradley Whitford, that we know from The West Wing now. He comes in one night, and him and his wife, she's, I think, 11 months pregnant or something. 11 months, that's not quite right. Um, 7 or 8 months pregnant. Like, they're kind of like that last sort of stretch of the journey. And things aren't really quite right, but they thought, let's just go into the ER and, we'll just sort of look after it. Like, it's all going to be fine. And
Mm.
they come in and they're very jokey and, just hanging out a little bit. And, they're getting
Yep.
Dr. Green, the Anthony Edwards character, to take a look. So he's in there and he's not entirely sort of, super comfortable with what's going on there. So he's like doing an extra test or two. And as the night goes on, it becomes the worst night in Dr. Green's life as this fairly innocuous case comes through, which ends up leaving with the mother dead on an operating table and the babies managed to be saved. But it's like this really heart-wrenching hour of television, which, you know, is just almost unwatchable, but deeply compelling at the same time. And so you had the hottest show on television suddenly drops this hour of TV. And the next day, people are talking about this on Talkback Radio and just everywhere. Like, you know, you hear that phrase water cooler television. Like, this was kind of it. Like, everybody was talking about this to the point where how many times can people actually give you the name of an episode of TV by episode title? And almost everyone knows what you're talking about. Okay.
Yeah,
Love's
I
Labour
do
Lost is
remember
one of
this
those
series.
shows. Yeah.
Yeah. Look, I do remember that episode. In fact, I recorded ER for some reason. I had this episode on tape and I watched it over and over again. It was we should point out that the director of this episode is Mimi Leader. And
who directed a whole bunch of ER.
Yeah, exactly. She did, based on her work in ER and specifically her work on episodes like Love's Labour's Lost. Had a fleeting big screen career. She did the George Clooney, Nicole Kidman action thriller called The Peacemaker, which collapsed in a bit of a heap at the box office, and she returned to episodic television. But her work on ER
you know what
was
she's
some
doing
of the
now?
best. No.
She's the main director on a little show called The Morning Show.
There you go. She's still getting work. And she's a terrific director, but mostly small screen stuff after some big screen stumbles. But yeah, no, I remember the episode and it's a terrific piece of television. You're absolutely right. Hey, ask me a question.
Well, I was just going to say, damn you, Sam, because you've got me into ER again. And Love's Labour Lost is the next episode. And so as you ask me what I'm watching now, I'm not watching that episode. I'm sitting here just dreading knowing that sometime later today I'm going to watch that hour of television. And that's kind of what got me. And I opened this up by saying that there was stuff that I can't talk about because I'm under embargo. But all I'll say is there's a certain show launching in the next couple of weeks. I've been doing the Batusi around the house a bit because, boy, it is really, really good. But anyway, we'll talk about that in a few weeks' time.
Oh, I just realized what it was. A live moment on this podcast. I just realized what you're talking about now. So, okay, that's interesting. All right, well, Simon, I've got a couple of more things I've been watching.
What have you got?
All right, well, now, the last couple of nights, my wife and I have had some troubling movie-going experiences because we like this
didn't go where I expected.
We like big stars in bad movies. Well, we don't really like that. We like big stars, but when they turn up in bad movies, that can often be its own sort of pleasure. Now, we stumbled across a movie called Mother's Instinct, which is on Amazon Prime, and their front and center are Anne Hathaway and Jessica Chastain. Now, we're thinking, why is this Anne Hathaway, Jessica Chastain movie, two Oscar-winning stars in a period set, that period being sort of the late 50s, early 60s, with a notable director, a guy called Ben-Hum Elliott, Deloire or Deliotte. He's a French filmmaker. I'm thinking, why is this not a more big deal? It turns out it's terrible, and it tells the story of a young boy who is killed in a backyard accident. He's Anne Hathaway's son, and she decides to move in on who was once her best friend in the form of Jessica Chastain to steal away her creepy little kid. It's just high camp and really terrible, but kind of watchable in the way only really over-the-top actors giving over-the-top performances can be. It's called Mother's Instinct. It's on Amazon Prime. The next night, we thought we'd check out A Family Affair, which is the new Netflix movie, romantic drama starring Nicole Kidman and Zac Efron as the two most mismatched and inauthentic lovers in screen history. He's a big, objectionable Hollywood star. She's a writer who stumbles across the opportunity to work on his film. Her daughter, played by a really quite terrible Joey King, is kind of mixed up in their burgeoning romance. The stunning thing about this is that it's written and directed by Richard LaGravenese, I think it's pronounced, and he did some huge work back in the day, notably The Fisher King. He wrote the script for that Robin Williams, Terry Gilliam collaboration, which is one of my favorite movies. But A Family Affair is just awful, and not in a fun way that Mother's Instinct is. It's just a really dour, inauthentic, cringy bit of star worship that just never comes together at all.
Say the
Avoid
word,
Mother's
Simon.
Instinct. Hey, it's shit. Mother's Instinct, A Family Affair, both duds. It's what I was watching. I wish I hadn't watched them. So that brings to the end this segment.
Okay. Well then, if that brings to the end of this segment, we move on to the next segment, which is called House of Games.